President Trump has repeated his claim that the U.S. has a trade deficit with Canada, one day after he boasted of making that same assertion to the Canadian Prime Minister. In a fundraising speech, President Trump admitted, this is key, he admitted that he had no idea whether his claim was true when he made it. He had no idea whether his claim was true when he made it. But we're going to show you the facts here on Quest Means Business. These are from President Trump's own Bureau of Economic Analysis. So let's take a look here. Canada sent $306 billion worth of goods alone to the U.S. last year. The U.S. sent $283 billion worth of goods the other way. If you subtract one from the other, you see that the U.S. did have a deficit in terms of goods. Now, the president has been focusing on physical goods. Certainly makes sense when you consider that he won the election with support from areas hard hit by the decline in manufacturing. But this is key. The U.S. economy is increasingly dominated by services. When you add those in, when you add services in the balance, trade certainly tips the other way. The balance of trade certainly tips the other way. A surplus of nearly $3 billion with Canada. So when you add goods and services, the U.S. has a surplus of nearly $3 billion with Canada. That accounts for things like tourism and healthcare. It was the same story in both 2015 and 2016 as well. Join me now. We've got the star team, haven't we? Patrick Gillespie, who follows all things trade, and Rana Fruha is CNN's global economic analyst. So, Ron, let me start with you. Just explain to me why it would make sense for President Trump not just to say things that aren't true, but to come out and admit that he says things that aren't true, especially when he's negotiating.
Wait, you're asking me to make sense of what the president is saying?
It doesn't make sense because obviously it weakens his negotiating position if the other side then knows, okay, the president is perhaps telling porkies.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, first of all, let's not try and make economic sense of what the president's saying. But I think that this is really, in some ways, about playing to his base. You know, when you talk about the goods economy versus the service economy, you're really talking about old line, Rust Belt, you know, Pennsylvania, we can talk about that, but, you know,
East Coast, West Coast,
East Coast, West
Coast,
Coast,
the breadbasket,
digital economy versus an economy that's about, you know, steel and aluminum and widgets. And that's really what's at stake here. I mean, this is one of the reasons that, to me, so much of what the president has done and what the administration has done policy-wise in the last few months hasn't made sense, because it's about an old line economy. It's about physical goods. We're moving to a digital economy.
But when he said it to the Canadian Prime Minister, did he even know whether he was talking about goods and services? It's only after the fact that we then did the digging and realized, oh, I guess he was talking about goods. But he didn't realize he was talking about goods or services. He just sort of said it to the Canadian Prime Minister without knowing what he was talking about.
Exactly, Zain. He doesn't, you know, President Trump was going after goods and not thinking about the lion's share of the U.S. economy, which is services. You know, 10% of the U.S. economy comes out of manufacturing, the industry that President Trump is so fixated on, so focused on. The vast majority, about 2/3 of the economy, comes from consumer spending and from services. So it's puzzling, it's hard to put together, and I think it's important for everybody out there to know that there's two parts to the pie. There's goods and there's services, and to fixate on one is just misleading.
You know, you've just hit on something important, too, which is that most of the economy is about consumer spending. It's, you know, not only services, but 70% of our economy is about what you and I are spending. And so that's one of the reasons that I have been so against things like the big corporate tax cut. I mean, we need to be working on getting more money in individuals' pockets rather than thinking about how to give companies more.
So let me ask you this. So for Justin Trudeau, who's on the receiving end of President Trump basically saying things that he doesn't even know is true, how does he manage negotiating with that sort of tactic? I mean, I know that you and I talked about this, that Trudeau is going around the U.S., he's touring factories, he's sort of trying to show the world that the U.S. and Canada have a strong relationship. But how does he handle this? I guess this question is to both of you. But how does he handle...
You know, I would say I've been at a number of conferences, events recently where Trudeau or other Canadian ministers have been there talking to U.S. business people, basically selling themselves here. And you know what? They've got a pretty good sell. Here's why. They're focused on new businesses, on high tech, on services, on growth. And that's where the economy is going. I mean, the more that we in the U.S. talk about the Rust Belt, talk about steel, talk about aluminum, that makes business turn away. And also, you know, it's about a workforce. It's about training up a 21st century workforce. That's something Canada has actually been quite smart on, I think.
I think that excellent point. And the sort of checkmate that Trudeau has is that Canada is often the #1 buyer of a lot of U.S. goods, whether it's steel, some of those goods, some of those heavy industry things, airplanes.
That's an important selling point.
So the sort of checkpoint is, okay, you want to blow up this trade agreement. We are your #1 customer, so don't do that. But the other sort of soft point is that Trudeau has been doing this tour of U.S. cities and trying to garner support among the U.S. business community.
So, Rana, let me ask you this. When you look at the markets, actually, we ended the markets up today, up triple digits, but there's been a lot of uncertainty regarding what the future holds in terms of U.S. trade policy. There it is. The market ended the day 115 points up. You know, with the triple-digit losses we've seen recently on the markets, if people actually believe that we could be entering a trade war, or if President Trump was really, really serious about imposing tariffs on certain countries, wouldn't the market be down far, far worse?
You know, there's a couple of things going on in the market right now that are important. One, think about the fact that the market responds to what the Federal Reserve is doing, what central bankers are doing. Interest rates are still pretty low. I mean, we know that they're going to be going up, and that's one of the reasons that we've seen volatility and will continue to see it. Markets don't really know how to price political risk. And your point is exactly right. You look at all the crazy things that are going on politically right now, and you would think, why is the market not responding? The market doesn't know how to price North Korea, how to price Russia, even how to price a trade war.
A full-blown trade war is kind of unimaginable. The last one happened in the 1930s, so it's really hard for the market to say.
It's even got political risk today with the subpoenas being announced for the Trump organization. So, Patrick, to you, just in terms of the timeline for renegotiating NAFTA, Mexico, they have elections at the beginning of July this year, so that's just in a few months. So there's a deadline to get this done before the new administration in Mexico takes place, because otherwise you're going to have to start all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. In short, NAFTA talks are running out of time. They've always been on a very condensed time frame. These trade talks usually take years. They're trying to get this done in several months. There are only, I think, 6 out of 30 NAFTA chapters agreed upon, done, locked down. They've got, I guess, 24 more to go, and the election's in July.
Doesn't bode well, does it?
And the front runner in Mexico says that he wants to start the negotiation process all over again. So it could take a lot longer than.
We're going to be back here talking.
Yeah, I'm sure. Here we go. Okay, guys, always good to see you, my friends. Thank you.